Our speaker tonight largely needs no introduction, but Daryl Messinger. I would say if only you were a successful businesswoman with a penchant for giving back to the Jewish community, Dayenu, it would have been enough. If you hadn't, I just learned this tonight, if you hadn't served on the search committee that brought Rabbi Rick Block to Beth Am, Dayenu, it would have been enough. If you hadn't served as the president of Congregation Beth Am in the mid-90s, Dayenu, it would have been enough. But no, you went on to become the first woman to chair the Union for Reform Judaism. Dayenu could have been enough, but you didn't stop there. You are now serving in your both retirement and lay retirement as the chair of ARTZA, the Association of Reform Zionists of America. And it is such a delight to have you here in town and on our bima speaking about Israel, Reform Judaism, and you and us. So welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Patrick, we're okay when I say to do it? Don't do it yet. But we're good, right? I know, but I don't trust clickers. Okay. I don't know about you all, but I tend to go backwards when you're supposed to be going forwards with clickers. Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to be here. I want to say hello as well to all of various family and friends and others. I noticed in Rabbi Josh Weinberg's weekly newsletter, he evidently put a link to our live stream tonight. So thank you all for zooming in as well. I got a text from Rabbi Rick Jacobs. Good luck, I'm watching. Doesn't make me less nervous. I would have appreciated it after. In June, I had the privilege to travel to Israel with a group of women leaders and philanthropists. It was a trip to bear witness to the incredible impact that Israeli women are having during this terrible war. On our very first evening at a dinner hosted at and by the new Anu Museum of Jewish People in Tel Aviv, we were invited to view the Sassoon Codex, believed to be the oldest and now the most expensive complete Hebrew Bible, more than 1,100 years old. A generous donor acquired the Codex in early 2023 for $38 million and donated it to the museum so that it could be viewed by everyone and not held in a private collection away from the public. Unfortunately, the war has forced the museum to put all its precious artifacts below ground, safe from missile attacks. So Patrick, this is the cue. This is the first slide. So we descended to the basement of the museum and entered a room that was a storage space with metal racks. There was the Codex on a folding table. It was opened to the Shema and the Vahavta. Patrick, the next slide. We asked our spiritual leader for this mission, Rabbi Angela Bookdahl, senior rabbi of Central Synagogue in New York City, if she would be willing to read from the sacred text. She chanted the Shema. She then asked my fellow 20 women travelers to join her in the chanting of the Vahavta. Tears streamed down our faces as we did so, and then we all sang the Shehekianu because we all understood the significance. This was a first, a Shehekianu moment of great significance. A first generation Korean, Jewish, American, rabbi, cantor, woman, who leads one of the largest congregations in the world, if not the largest Reform congregation, had just led a group of women leaders to recite the watchword of our faith. It was not just historical, but also defined what is in all of our power to achieve. We know that there are forces that would like to silence, cancel our liberal democratic voices in Israel and here. People who would prefer we stayed in our homes, who don't believe or disregard our Jewish communities, our beliefs and practices. Those who would not consider Rabbi Buchdahl Jewish, or for that matter, most of us. Tonight, I want to empower each of you to have a voice in shaping Israel for generations to come, to demonstrate that our voices matter and need to be counted. I know that for some in this sanctuary or on Zoom, the idea that we here in Los Altos Hills should have any role in creating Israel may be too abstract or too difficult, or perhaps just contrary to other values, ideas, or beliefs. You may feel that, especially in the middle of a war, that it is inappropriate to criticize Israel, and certainly not to do so publicly. Or it may be that the polarized discourse around Israel has just become too toxic and overwhelming. You know, who needs it? I stand here today as the chair of the Association of Reformed Zionists of America, ARTZA, begging you to reconsider. I represent the largest, most diverse movement of Jews in North America. And yes, we are Zionists. Let me be very clear. The Reform movement loves Israel. We believe the Jewish people have the right to self-determination. We stand in solidarity with our Israeli brothers, sisters, friends, and family as they fight terrible, evil forces. And yet, we do not love everything about Israel, about its current government, about the renewed efforts to change Israel's democracy, particularly its judicial system, especially with hostages still in Gaza and a continuing multi-front war in Israel. We are deeply distressed by the terrible, terrible suffering and death in Gaza. We call for a return of the hostages, and we agonize about all of Israel's inhabitants, particularly those still evacuated and homeless in the north and south. And we pray for peace and worry that simplistic slogans and maximalist visions could doom Israelis and Palestinians to never-ending conflict. As Reformed Jews, we want an Israel that is Jewish, democratic, pluralistic, secure for all Jews and all of Israel's inhabitants, Jewish, Palestinian, and many others. I believe that we must explore ways to improve the current reality and set a course for a better future. That requires all of us to see Israel's future as our own, as our responsibility. Another memory from my June trip. We visited kibbutz Kfar Aza, which was devastated by the Hamas attack on October 7th. Our tour guide was Vered Lipstein, a kibbutz resident. Patrick, next slide. Vered's husband, Ophir, who was the head of the Shahar HaNegev Regional Council, was killed in the first hours of the October 7th attack. Vered also lost her son, her mother, and her nephew that day. Ophir and Vered were longtime supporters and friends of the Reform community throughout the world, but particularly in this region. They were also deeply committed to providing economic opportunities to the Gazans living just a kilometer from their home. Ophir had led an effort to create an industrial work zone that was due to open in November 2023, initially for 200 Gazans to be working alongside Israelis, but with a longer-term objective of employing 10,000 in high-paying tech jobs and services. I asked Farid, what did she hope for after the war concluded? Her answers were clear. First, return of the hostages. Second, live again at Kfar Aza without fear. Third, reestablish Ophir's life work of an industrial zone for Palestinians and Israelis. As Vered stated, quote, there are 2 million Gazans living less than a kilometer from here. There are 1.5 million Israelis living in the Negev, the south. They aren't going anywhere, and we aren't either. We better learn to live together. That is my hope. That was Ophir's dream, unquote. As Reform Jews living outside of Israel, we have an opportunity. I believe, actually, it's our civic obligation to raise our voices and to say that we are deeply and forever connected to Israel. We have an opportunity to say we will not be silent in our love and our advocacy, and we will not give up on Israel. We will ensure that there are many more Rabbi Buchdahl's and Vered Lipstein's helping to make a better future for all of us, not just in Israel, but around the world. From March 10th to May 4th this year, our reform movement will look to expand our power and influence, advocate for our values, and increase our support for the reform movement in Israel and throughout the world through the elections of the World Zionist Congress. The Congress was conceived by early Zionists as a means to make sure that Jews everywhere had a stake in building and governing the Jewish state. It is a democratically elected international body that convenes every 5 years, and it is the way for diaspora Jews like you and me to have a voice in Israel and stand up for religious pluralism, democracy, and a path to peace. This is critically important because the outcomes of these elections have far-reaching implications, not just for Israel, but for all of us. The outcome impacts political appointments, governs the allocation of over $1 billion annually, and determines policies regarding many aspects of civil society and community development, such as aliyah, conversion, placement of bomb shelters, or settlement expansion. Our opponents in the Congress campaign are highly motivated religious fundamentalists whose vision for the future of Israel is dramatically and diametrically different than ours. Their vision writes Reform Jews out of the next chapter of Jewish history. They are organizing to abolish what we value, including chipping away at Israel's democracy, stripping our Israeli Reform clergy, especially our women rabbis, and our Reform communities of their rights, funding, and infrastructure. They are organizing to make sure that our converts and children are not welcome in the Jewish state. They're rolling back gains for gender equity, LGBTQ plus rights, and religious freedom. They're blocking any hope of Palestinian self-determination and safety. Our success in this campaign depends on you, each and every one of you. We are building a team here at Beth Am to spread the word and make sure that we all vote. We need your help. Rabbi Wademaker, Ina Bauman, Barbara Wyndham are our Beth Am captains. Thank you. Charlie Rothschild is helping to organize Jews throughout the peninsula and the Bay Area. You too can join our team. You should have received a postcard, or Matt Eisenberg was passing them out as well when you came in this evening. On one side, it includes a QR code about the election, and I've put it up here on the screen. Next slide, Patrick, thank you. And on the other side is an immediate action you can take when you get home to let the mayor of Holon know that there is more than one way to be Jewish in the Jewish state. Maybe the next slide, Patrick. In the coming weeks, you will be hearing more about how to vote and how to ask your friends and family to vote. With this week's Torah portion, or Parsha, we reach the end of the book of Genesis. The book ends with Joseph reuniting with his father Jacob and asking Jacob to bless his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. It is a touching scene that has since become the way we bless our children on Shabbat. We ask God's help so that our children will be like Ephraim and Manasseh. Who are these two grandsons, and why do we aspire for our descendants to be like them? Why not like the patriarchs and the matriarchs, or like Moses, Aaron, and Miriam? What hopes do we ascribe to them? I believe that like Jacob and Joseph, we are placing our values, hopes, and dreams in a new generation. And as Jacob and Joseph sought out blessing for their children and grandchildren, you too can do this by voting in this election and investing in our children and their children so that they will have an Israel to call home. And so I ask you to be like Ephraim and Manasseh, like Rabbi Buchdahl and Vered Lipstein, and help to create the Israel we can all be proud of and call light unto the nations. And as we say at the end of each book of the Torah, Chazak, Chazak, v'nichazek, may we be strong and draw strength from our Torah and from one another. Shabbat Shalom.